Welcome to the Cornbread and Kool-Aid podcast. My name is Demetrius. As always, the shout out goes to the super producer extraordinaire, Mr. Mike Ward. This podcast is for fans of Detroit sports in general, generally the Detroit Lions. But today we're gonna do a couple of things different. We're gonna rep some Negro League baseball with the Detroit Stars T-shirt. We're gonna talk some Pistons, and I got the Twitter box open. So if somebody wants to jump in and throw something else out there, I'm open to that too. We are going to talk some Lions though. So hopefully you like the podcast. If you do, please find a way to let me know. Even if you don't, you can, at Cornbread Pod on Twitter. You can let me know that too. That's fine. But hopefully you enjoy it. We like doing it, and we hope there's a lot of Detroit sports podcasts out there. Actually, a lot of them are really good. I recommend you listen to as many as you can. There's a lot of people with a lot of different views and thoughts and perspectives on our teams, and mine is just one. But I do like sharing it. I do like talking about our team. So today we're gonna touch base. We're gonna start with the Pistons, right? The NBA draft is coming up. The Pistons have the 5th selection this year in the first round. I'm going to do a post-draft pod, talk about the other rounds. Today, I'm just going to talk mostly about that 5th pick, kind of some scenarios, handful of players that might be there. I'm going to touch a little bit on my best understanding of their cap situation, because it is really tricky. But I've done a little homework. I think I have an understanding of where they are cap-wise, and I think that they're in a really good position. I mean, if you haven't looked at them and understood where they are, they're in a really good position, whether it is draft asset, capital as it relates to cap space, and they have a really tradable commodity, although I'm not sure I would trade them, which is part of the conversation. So we're going to talk some Pistons for a while first, and then I want to talk about Jared Goff, not the Lions as a whole, although I'll touch a little bit on different players, different positions. I want to talk about the question of quarterback, and there's varying opinions. So we'll dig into him. So what is he? What do we think he is? What does it mean? A little bit of that. So yeah, like I said, we hope you enjoy it. Mike and I enjoy doing it. If you do, find a way to like us, find a way to retweet us, our posts, or whatever it is. But ultimately, we enjoy doing this, and we hope you like it. So we're going to jump right into the NBA draft. So the Pistons, I think they got dropped 2 spots, if I'm not mistaken, maybe just 1 in the draft lottery, and they ended up with the 5th overall pick. So this year's draft is depending on who you talk to and how much you respect their opinion. There's been this conversation about 3 players. Lately, I've heard that variations of that. So there's a combo forward, small forward, power forward out of Auburn named Jabari Smith. Really, really well liked for his overall game. Paolo Banchero out of Duke, another power forward-ish, multi-positional type dude that everybody likes. And then there's Chet Holmgren, the unicorn, right? The legitimate 7-footer, not a 6'10" dude. They're saying 7-footer, legitimate 7-footer out of Gonzaga. But he's got skills of a smaller player. He can shoot with some range. Chet Holmgren's a conversation in and of himself. And all 3 of these guys are 19, I think. Chet might be 20, but I think these guys are all 19 or 20 years old. So there's that. So some of this becomes, I'm going to work today. Maybe I won't. I don't know. The assumption so far has been those 3 guys are going to go 1, 2, 3. So with the Pistons at 5, I really start to look at what I want to say Sacramento. If I'm wrong, somebody will correct me. Pretty sure Sacramento's at 4. So I'm starting kind of at 4. I might come back and revisit Chet, though. I don't know. Because I saw a report recently that Chet might not go top 5. He might be on the board for the Pistons. We'll see how this goes. We might come back to the Chet talk in a minute. But let's start the talk under a degree of assumption that those 3 guys are gone. So I'm going to start there. And the first thing we have to talk about is, where are we? Like, are we? People don't like when I do that, apparently. I didn't realize that was a thing, that I, as a fan of a team, am somehow wrong to say we when I'm talking about the team I root for, because I don't play for the team. I'm not a part of the organization. I don't think I really care about that. So, but I heard that and thought, I think I do that a lot, whether it's the Lions, Tigers, Pistons, Michigan State, whatever. I'm going to keep doing it. And if it bothers you, I appreciate you listening. So let's look at where we are, right? I am a fan of Troy Weaver. Obviously, I've said that a lot. I love sort of the reformation of what he's done in the 2 years, what he inherited. And this isn't a bash Stan Van Gundy type of thing, but that Blake Griffin contract saddled them. They were paying guys. They were still paying Josh Smith. It was a mess. Like overall, organizationally, what talent did they have? What talent did they not have? And there were guys on the roster that didn't fit, didn't want to be here. You can love Reggie Jackson if you want. I'm not mad at him. But what I did understand was the Pistons as an organization operating within the parameters of the NBA have to take a special and unique path, right? And that league has a high degree of player movement. A lot of that movement is driven by the players themselves. And as much as I love Detroit, as much as I think the state of Michigan is the greatest state in the union, everybody doesn't agree with me, right? So there are things like state taxes, which when you make, $50 million a year, state taxes might be something you and your family care about. Those types of things matter. So when you have states like Florida, Texas, with organizations like Miami, Orlando, Houston, Dallas, well, maybe not Orlando recently, but good organizations that also don't have state taxes, a team like the Pistons in a state like Michigan, and you can throw in weather for those who care about that, are inherently hamstrung by certain things that have nothing to do with how you run the basketball organization. Now, with all that in mind, so then what you have to do is understand that you have to draft very well. You have to create an organizational culture where when you draft a guy like Cade with the first pick, when he can sign a new deal in 4 years, if I'm not mistaken, he doesn't want to leave. He likes the culture. He likes the environment. He thinks he can win, which is probably the thing over and above everything else, is that there's an opportunity to win. So I say all that to say that I think Troy Weaver has done a great job with that. He was hamstrung. Like I said, I believe Blake Griffin had $31 million on our books last year, on the Pistons books last year. You can't do much with that, right? So now, and these cap numbers are different. I consulted 3 sources, so I might not be exact. So if you're out there, you happen to be listening to this and say, he's quoting bogus numbers. They're not bogus in as much as they're probably not perfect. I think they're close, but they might not be perfect. So here's the thing. You have a deal where you have a core group of people you like. You love Cade, right? You really like Sadiq Bey and Isaiah Stewart. You may be up or down on the kid my brother hates, Killian Hayes. Kenny doesn't like Killian Hayes, right? But you have Jeremy Grant, who, by the way, is only 28 years old. People talk about him like he's old and you got to get rid. I don't understand all that talk, and we'll get to that. But they were the 4th youngest roster in the league. It's important to note that. And then when you think about it, when Cade and Sadiq Bey and Jeremy Grant were all on the floor at the same time, their net rating was plus 8.1 or something like that. I read, which is significantly better than when the 3 of them are not. And that's important to the piece about core. You have to first believe you have a core of talent before you shift into the mode of start to build around that talent. So they had been we need to acquire a core set of talent. And I believe that Troy Weaver did that in the 2020 draft when he acquired, I like Killian Hayes more than most. Killian Hayes, there's a place on this roster for him. Killian Hayes, Sadiq Bey, and Isaiah Stewart. And then you supplemented that with Cade Cunningham. And even maybe guys like Luka Garza and Isaiah Livers from like bench strength type deal. But I think after last year's draft, I said they have a core, and they had a 27-year-old at the time, Jeremy Grant, who was exactly what they thought he was. In this league, Jeremy Grant is incredibly valuable as an asset now because he will be on an expiring contract. He wants a new deal, and we can get into that. But let's play with the money for a minute. So we've established that we have a young core now. So we're going to shift to rebuild mode to supplement mode. Let's start to understand that we have a good young core. We got to start putting specific pieces around this young core. So my understanding is they had a roughly, and again, the numbers are close, right? 72 million in guaranteed contracts, and the cap is 122. But they had dead money still for a few guys, but it's only like 12 million in dead money. And they got these team options that are about 10. The team options are really about Hamidou Diallo, Frank Jackson, and Luka Garza. So think about, how do I feel about those three players? Diallo has talent. I don't know what his ceiling is. I don't know if he's reached it. I think Frank Jackson is, by all accounts, a good locker room guy, a good piece, certainly a depth level type player that I happen to like his game. There are times when I look at Frank Jackson, I go, every team's going to need a Frank Jackson type guy on their team. Every good teams are going to need a Frank Jackson type player on their team. So then Luka Garza is the deal where it's, drafted last year. He was a really good player in the Big Ten out of Iowa. There's a place in the league for Luka Garza. So I like those guys. And all total, you're still only talking roughly 10 million. So with that, they had 25 million left. So then here's a couple pieces. Bagley is going to need to get paid, right? We can have a long conversation about Marvin Bagley III. I like what I saw in a Piston uniform. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I watched him play a lot in Sacramento. I don't know. Maybe he wasn't happy. Maybe he didn't like Sacramento, California. Maybe he didn't like the organization. Maybe there's all kinds of maybes. I know that when he came to the Pistons, I liked his game. I liked his energy. I liked what he brought. And my feeling is, if you can get him for under 10, let's just say 10 a year, you can sign Bagley to something that a 3-year extension at 30. And my feeling is he'll be more than comfortable with that. That is not a bad move. You're not locked in long term. The number per year is not too bad. I think so. So let's say of the 25 million, right? You've got, let's say you spend the 10 on Diallo, Frank Jackson, and Luka Garza, right? You got 10 more for Frank. Now you're down to say 15, but there's 12.2 million wrapped up in Kelly Olynyk. Do you extend him? Do you keep him? Right. And then there's 21 million on the books for Grant. And you have to talk about, what do you do? The extension for him is 28 per. So it's like 4 years, 112. That's right about what that number falls. You could maneuver the cap, pay him 20 the first year, pay him later on the back end in case you move him. So there's all kinds of things you can do. But I'm leaning all this toward, you could say we're gonna let Kelly Olynyk move on, and we're gonna trade Jeremy Grant. And we'll get to what do we get in the trade for Jeremy Grant. But you do those two things, you got a number that's up around $50 million in cap money. You can go out and sign. But this is not the year for that, because the free agent class isn't as good this year. I don't eliminate the possibility you re-sign Jeremy for maybe 28, right? That's what it is, 28, 4 years, 112. And you still can have 30-ish million. You let Olynyk go, re-sign the three guys I talked earlier, Diallo, Hamidou Diallo, Frank Jackson, and Luka Garza, and re-sign Jeremy Grant. Let Kelly Olynyk go. You bring Grant back into the fold, which is awesome because he's really good. You still got 30 million. You can still go add talent to this team. So there's all kinds of moves you could do, right? But the key is you do all that stuff and I think the money I use accounted for the draft picks, and you still get the 5th pick in the draft. So if you've got 20 plus million and you can go add 2 good players or one really good player and the 5th pick in the draft, you have brought back Grant. You have brought back Jeremy Grant, and you have added 2 more quality players. Now you're talking play-in playoffs. You're talking about a team that now shifts from one level to another. And you're not going to be back in the lottery next year because you got a core of young talent, one of the youngest rosters in the league. Everybody's under 30. And so that core group of guys can give you this window of 4 or 5 years of really, really good basketball. So I think the most of that is about they're in a good position, healthy from a cap standpoint. They've got a tradable asset. I've heard upside rumors of what you can get for Jeremy Grant being the 4th pick from Sacramento. Now they might want the Pistons to throw in something else, a future pick or something like that. But if you can bring back Grant and the 5th pick or the 4th and 5th pick, now you're talking about you have to have some older players though. You can't have all young 1st, 2nd, 3rd year players. So I like where they are. The Blake Griffin money helps. Coming off the books helps. But Troy Weaver's been really smart, and he's put together a core group of players. So who do we add at 5 becomes the question. What are we talking about at 5? So assuming those other 3 won't, and I think I'm going to come back to Chet later. I want to talk about 4 or 5 guys though. So the first guy is Jaden Ivey. Like him, right? Explosive athlete, quick first step. He can leap. He can knock down the NBA 3. He attacks the rim. He can create his own shot, which is good for Cade. And what you want when you're looking at these guys, the very first question you say is, does he work with Cade? How does he fit with Cade? That's everything. Cade's the centerpiece of the team. Everyone else needs to be able to work off of Cade. Jaden Ivey, 6'4". He's out of Purdue, and I think he's like 17-5. But he shot 35% from 3. That helps Cade. Cade can work with that. So Jaden Ivey's one. Now, my feeling is Jaden Ivey won't be there. Jaden Ivey will be the 4th pick. Unless we make a deal and we get the 4th pick. I think the guy I really like, I really like, and other teams like him too, his name's Keegan Murray. He's out of Iowa, a couple Big Ten guys. Keegan Murray's a little taller than Jaden Ivey. He's about 6'8", I think. And he is what they call old because he's 21. He's all of 21. So he's considered old. It's like a knock, right? It baffles me because I saw this kid play in the Big Ten and his versatility. He's got post-up game. He can hit threes at a high clip. He's a rebounder, very high IQ guy. This is my choice, right? This is my choice. If you do this, you can make the Grant move. So I don't know if they're tied to each other. My feeling is a Grant move might not come before the draft because if you might want to wait and say, if we can walk away with Keegan Murray, we feel like we have a plug and play replacement for Jeremy Grant right there. Then you can make a Jeremy Grant move anyway, because his number is good. But if you tell me you re-sign Bagley and you got Stewart, there's minutes there for Keegan. Even if you keep Kelly Olynyk, there's minutes there for a guy like Keegan Murray to step in. The old thing is funny. His game is complete. He's very versatile. His game is complete. I love Keegan Murray. That, if you ask me. So there's a guy named Ben Matherin, right? Benedict, which is a cool first name, but he's a out of Arizona. I think he's like 6'6", right? He's that classic. There's a term in the NBA they like to call 3-and-D. A guy could hit threes and play defense. He seems to fit the 3-and-D mode, and defense is always good. He can work alongside Cade. He's also athletic. His upside, I don't know if he's hit his upside yet. There's a lot to like about Ben Matherin. There really is. I wouldn't have a problem with this pick at 5 if Keegan Murray was gone. If you chose him over Ivy, it wouldn't bother me. It wouldn't bother me because Ivy's only 6'4", Keegan Murray's 6'8". And I just love Keegan Murray's versatility a lot. So this guy's 6'6" and can defend probably 3 positions. This wouldn't be a bad pick at 5 at all. I like him. So now let's talk. I don't want to use the word project because I got to be honest with you guys. I don't know a ton about this guy, right? This is all speculation. Well, actually both guys. So let's first talk a world where I saw a report the other day that Murray goes 3. No, Ivy goes 3 and Murray goes 4 after Banchero and Smith. So Chet Holmgren is on the board at 5, right? So then the question becomes, where do you stand on Chet Holmgren? And this is a spectrum, and there are people all across the spectrum. There are those who have said Darko 2.0. And every time the Pistons are considering anybody who's really tall or potentially a project, you're going to get the Darko references, right? It doesn't matter. It's almost 20 years out. You're still going to hear the Darko. And there's people who are younger who might be listening to this podcast who have no idea who Darko is, right? So there's that. I have heard people on the other end of that spectrum say this guy is Kevin Durant. His ball skills are that good at his height. He can shoot mid-range. He can shoot 3. He can handle the ball like a small forward. at legitimately 7'2" or maybe bigger. I don't know. I like his game. I have the same issue that everybody who's ever watched an NBA game has with Chet Holmgren. I don't know how much this guy weighs, and it is not a lot for a 7'3" guy. But I also believe that a professional team with nutritionists and trainers and the best weight rooms in the world can put weight on him if you believe that's what he needs. Now, I don't know how much weight Kevin Durant's gained in his career, but that was the knock on him. They mocked this guy at the combine for not being able to bench press. I feel like it's 225, whatever it is, not being able to get up one bench press. And all he's done is gone out and had a Hall of Fame career and laughed at those ridiculous notions that he couldn't lift a bar of weights means he can't be one of the greatest players in the history of the game. So I always like it when people reference that, because all he's done, he probably put that chip right on his shoulder and has just spent, I don't know, the better part of 15 years now dominating everybody, right? So I don't buy that. I think the scouts do their work. He played at Gonzaga. We've got film. There's film. They can know what he is. They can make their own decision about what they think he is, who they think he is. So if that scenario were to play out, my guess is they would strongly consider Chet Holmgren. And I don't know that I would have a problem with that. I don't know. If there's some world where Chet Holmgren's on the board and Keegan Murray's on the board, but that's just my own personal leanings toward Keegan Murray. So that would be interesting. But the other guy who is getting the label project, I have never seen play. He practiced with Kentucky. He's a 6'6" parent freak of nature. No, that's a strong word to use. Uber athletic guy named Shaden Sharp, right? Went to Kentucky. I've seen footage of him in practice uniforms, right? But he played at a summer tournament or the Nike Peach Jam last summer and averaged like 22 and 6 with some assists. Shot plus 50% inside the arc and 36 from outside. So I think this was some camp though. And there are people who are really high. He's, in my opinion, much more of a project than Chet Holmgren, because you got film on Chet Holmgren. We saw Chet Holmgren play Division I basketball at a very high level at Gonzaga. So if you view him as a project, that becomes the thing where it's up to Troy Weaver and his team to decide. And that's what their jobs are. That's what this thing is all about. So for me, Murray, right? If that other thing happens and you got these question marks, Holmgren seems to have a complete skill set that everybody likes. He needs to gain weight, obviously, but he's 20. So you can put weight on a 20-year-old. And Kevin Durant didn't need a whole lot of weight. So would you pass on someone who has even the remotest possibility to turn into Kevin Durant? Do you pass on that guy? If he's on the board staring you in the face, do you go down your board and take another project in Shaden Sharp, or even further down, take someone else and pass on? And not from a PR standpoint of what will people say when Chet Holmgren's a superstar in 3 years. You can't think like that. You can't care about that, right? The biggest thing is at 5, they're going to add talent. They're going to add a very talented player, no matter who it is. And depending on what you do with Jeremy Grant, whether you decide to re-sign him or let him go or trade him, you're going to add some talent to this roster. And you've got a really healthy cap situation, and it puts you in a position to sign somebody or facilitate a sign and trade. People often misunderstand. That's not true. They devalue the importance of cap space. They think it is simply you can sign a player. It's not always it, right? So here's a scenario that has happened a few times that I like. And I know Troy Weaver knows all this stuff, but when 2 other teams want to make a trade, but they have cap problems, what you need is a third team to come in with cap space. Or just one team likes a player, but they don't have the cap space to sign him. So they can call a team like the Pistons and say, do you like anybody on our roster? Would you be interested in me sending you these 2 or 3 really good players, maybe guys on the expiring contract? Maybe they have a player you need, right? We want to sign guy X, or more likely in today's NBA, guy X wants to come and play here, but we don't have the cap space. So let's you and I talk about a trade where you go sign that guy that we love that wants to come here, and then we trade, right? It's been done. The Pistons have done it, right? When Grant Hill decided he no longer wanted to be a Piston, and maybe that wasn't the decision. And I'm not salty about Grant Hill leaving. I got it. Maybe he liked the weather in Orlando, Florida. Maybe his wife was an incredibly talented singer, could do things for her career living in Orlando. Maybe it was the idea of playing with Tracy McGrady. He thought they were going to blow up. Maybe it was the no state income taxes we talked about. But back then, Grant Hill made the decision that Orlando was the place he wanted to go. The Pistons could have just let him go sign with Orlando. Orlando had the cap space. Maybe, because they wanted to do him and McGrady. But instead, Joe Dumars got on the phone, or they called him, and they worked out a deal where Grant actually re-signed with the Pistons, and the Pistons traded him to Orlando. And they got a guy named Chucky Atkins. They got somebody else, and they got this pretty good 6'10" power forward that was underutilized in Orlando named Ben Wallace. Right? And we know the rest, right? Joe made a couple other shrewd moves, signed Chauncey Billups, made a trade for Rip Hamilton, drafted Tayshaun Prince, made a incredible trade to acquire Rasheed Wallace at the trade deadline, and you're celebrating at Hart Plaza in the middle of 2004, right? Should have been celebrating in 2005. Troy Weaver has an opportunity to do stuff like that with the cap space he has, with the trade commodity that is Jeremy Grant, with the 5th pick in the draft, the flexibility. So this Piston talk was simply, this will be a critical summer for the Pistons. It will help define the next decade of Piston basketball. And it's for all those reasons. Who they draft at 5, what they do with Jeremy Grant, how they utilize their cap space. And that might be, don't spend it all because next year is a better free agent class. I don't know that for sure, but what I do know for sure is that Troy Weaver knows that for sure. So this is a big summer for the Pistons. I think this is where they make that step change. I really do. And I'm excited about it. I think they're going to do some really smart things. And I can almost assure you there will be a podcast later where I'll talk about these moves. I'm probably going to do something right after the draft. So maybe in a week or so. And then maybe 2 weeks, we'll do something. And then as free agency evolves, what they do there, whether or not they trade Grant, they're going to make some moves that are going to demand me giving my perspective, demand me, that are going to make me want to give my perspective on the podcast. So you will see that. Okay, so now that's enough basketball. Let's talk about the real question, right? And so, not the real question. That's good stuff if you're a Piston fan. I don't know that everybody here is a Piston fan. What I assume is that anybody listening or watching is a Lions fan. And I've been struggling with this. So I want you guys to help me. And again, I got the Twitter feed up. It's fine. If you want to drop something in there, go ahead. I need you to help me because I can't decide the why. The why. Why do we think we know something? And so some of this gets into a whole lecture I could do on how people form opinions, right? And the short version of that goes, it has become very popular. It has become very common to form opinions based on a very small amount of information and mostly gravitate to opinions that confirm what you already believe. So you're not actually forming an opinion. You've already decided what you feel, which is not the same as what you think. Thinking and feeling are not the same. So you've decided what you feel or what you think. And then when you hear something that confirms what you think, the confirmation bias kicks in, right? And I'm not going to do the whole lecture, but we're talking about Jared Goff. The whole point of this is Jared Goff. And the more I talk to people, the more I look at this, I know who I am. So I avoided this topic for a while. And then I talked to a friend of mine who says, hey, why have you not done a podcast on Jared Goff? Why have you not done a podcast and at least approached the topic of Jared Goff this offseason right now? And I said, well, tell me why. What do I need to do? What are we talking about? And he says, how do you feel about Jared Goff? And so then 20 minutes later, he said, that's why. Because that's a perspective. Is it the only perspective? No. Is it the right perspective? No. I don't ever think my opinions are right or wrong. I called this podcast the Cornbread and Kool-Aid Podcast for a reason, because I know who I am. I don't believe I'm in the minority. I think I don't match up with sports talk radio what they call root for radio. I don't match up with RFR because I don't call in and try and get somebody fired. I don't call in and think I know everything. I don't. I think I have an opinion. I think I do my diligence. So my opinion isn't nonsense, even if many people don't agree with it. But I've met a lot of Lions fans in particular who say, yeah, I get it. And I've met some who don't. I had the son of Dick Night Train Lane on the podcast, I don't know, a month or so ago, and he thought I was bananas. And shout out to Richard Lane, a good dude. I'm going to have him back. We all know my brother thinks I'm a lunatic and how I think about this. But as it relates to Jared Goff, it's pretty simple. This team is at a very specific point. I think it's very, very important. I think right now, what they've done, what Brad Holmes has done, what they've done in general is start to build the team they want. They've started to build the culture they want. I think Dan Campbell's a better coach today than he was a year ago. I think they've added better talent. I think they've added more talent. But most importantly, I think they've added specific talent. DJ Chark is a specific talent. When Jameson Williams is healthy, he is a specific talent. He will bring something to the team they did not have, specifically, right? Top off the defense speed. Aiden Hutchinson, Josh Pascal, specific talent. Going from a 3-4 to a 4-3, you want your ends to get up the field and get after the quarterback, right? These are specific talents. That is them building the team they want. At some point, you got to address quarterback, right? And address quarterback does not mean get rid of Goff. I'm on record saying I'm a Goff guy. I'm going to try and be objective right now, but I'm on record saying I'm a Goff guy. So I don't even know if I can do that. I don't even know how I would go about doing that because I'm on record saying I'm a Goff guy, but we're going to try it, right? So when we think about it, what are they trying to do? Well, that's what it is. They have a very specific way they want to play football, a specific way they want to run their team, a way they want to practice, a way they want to have meetings. They are building a culture that is as important as anything, in my opinion. And as much as the dumbass Dans of the world want to boo Sheila Ford Hamp, who handled that gracefully, by the way, who want to blame anyone last name Ford for all the years of futility, which is patently absurd. I have done a podcast on the problem there. It is not necessarily the last name Ford, and it is most assuredly not Sheila Hamp. And I think I'm not supposed to say Ford anymore. So Sheila Hamp, I don't think it's a problem. So, but I'm not going to do a whole Sheila Hamp thing right now. I can't tell you this is going to work for sure. I would like to. I believe it will, but I can't guarantee you it'll work. But what I do know is that this is the year. Much like the whole speech I just gave on the Pistons, this is the time right now that's going to define the next decade of Lion football, this year, right? And there's a bunch of reasons. One, we can start to see what is Brad Holmes. We can evaluate what is Brad Holmes. We need to see organic improvement from Aleem McNeil, Levi Onwuzurike. We need to see Derek Barnes get the field. We need to find out what is Jeff Okudah and what are you going to do about it? Josh Pascal and Aiden Hutchinson, Chark, who you signed. Does Josh Reynolds actually have an impact on this team? Where do we place guys like Jarrett Davis and Alex Anzalone and Chris Board? Where do we place these guys? What does that mean? This is the year where we can evaluate Brad Holmes as a general manager or president of football operations. I'm sorry, I don't actually know what his title is. Second thing, we can evaluate Dan Campbell as a coach. I struggled last year to say that kind of stuff. He sucks as a coach because there were two different coaches, right? There was the coach who was going for it on fourth down and being very risky early because his team wasn't talented and he had to be creative. There's actually three. There's a guy who took over play calling for 4 games and I wanted him fired. And then there's a guy who coached the last 6 games. There should be a degree of growth in a head coach, much like a player, year 1 to year 2, much like anybody. Think about the first day you started your job, whatever your job is, doesn't matter. First day, first week, first month. And then think about a year in, all of the stuff you learned, all the stuff you knew, all the people, systems, just how to go about where the bathroom is in the building. You learn a lot of stuff. And that's just called organic growth, totally organic growth. That's what you're looking for. I think there's a defensive personnel switch that we have to recognize. going from a 3-4, which they kind of had to do because Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia left them a roster of guys designed to play that scheme. They have wanted to go to a 4-3 all along. And my opinion of the difference is that a 3-4 defense has a lot more read and react. If you've got the outside linebackers who can get up the field, but it's a lot more read and react, which is what I think is a hallmark of the Patriots defense, is what I think Patricia wanted to do. And you can disagree. That's just my opinion. I think what Dan Campbell wants is a defense that said, we're coming after your quarterback. We're coming after your quarterback. If I run into a running back and he's got the ball on my way to your quarterback, cool, I'll tackle him. We're going to try and be disruptive. We're going to try and make life hard for your quarterback. Everything else works off that. If we make life hard for your quarterback, everything else works off that. What does this mean? Does it mean they're going to occasionally give up a big play? Yep. More than occasionally. They'll give up a couple of big plays a game. Does it mean they will get more sacks, be disruptive? Yep. I think it's going to make them a better defense because I like Aaron Glenn. Now, can we, so ultimately we can evaluate Dan Campbell better in year 2 than year 1. Third thing is the young players. I just talked a lot about organic growth. Jeff Okudah, that's a big question. How does Romeo Okwara come off his injury? How does Charles Harris play this year now that he's got a bag of money, right? Ife Melifonwu, is he for real? Does he grow? And does he and Oruwariye and Okudah give us this all Nigerian cornerback room, right? I love it. What is Tracy Walker's got his bag of money? What does he do? Does he grow into a near Pro Bowl type of safety, or was that a mistake? These questions get answered. So at the top, I was like, the reason this year is important is because a bunch of questions get answered. Is Brad Holmes the real deal? Is Dan Campbell the real deal? Okudah, Romeo, Tracy Walker, even DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift has another step he can take, right? Does he step up to that Pro Bowl level running back who can stay healthy and do all the things we want him to do? All those things are reasons this year is critically important for the Detroit Lions. But there is none. Those are all big deal. But there are none of them that are as important as the question of what do we do at quarterback going forward? What do we do at quarterback going forward? Now, my feeling, and you could disagree, again, that's cool. My feeling is there's 3 fundamental perspectives, right? If there's a fourth one, and I might come up with one by the time we're done, but I think there's 3 fundamental perspectives. Perspective 1, Goff is ineffective. He costs us games. He doesn't help us win games. And they have to use draft capital next offseason to get a quarterback. Acquire a quarterback. And I say acquire specifically because it doesn't necessarily mean draft a quarterback. Because as you remember, we have 2 number 1s. But if Goff plays really poorly, we're probably top 5, and you can draft one of the top quarterbacks. You could also move Goff and picks, a number of picks, if there's a quarterback somewhere that for whatever reason, and you can sit now and say, there are people who like Baker Mayfield. I don't, but there are people who do, right? There are people who like Jimmy Garoppolo. That's right now. So next year, there will be 1 or 2 guys. Deshaun Watson was available, warts and all. But if next year is like this year, and every year is probably that way, there will be a quarterback in the league now. If Goff doesn't play well, you'll be able to rationalize that guy's an upgrade over Jared Goff. And because we built this good team, that guy will help us win more games, right? This goes back to the question of, is it the team or is it the quarterback? Right? If Goff doesn't play well, the question's answered. We have to go and acquire a quarterback. Whether it's draft or trade or free agency, that's the answer. Scenario number 2, Goff plays okay, but not good enough to extend him. Because you got to remember, Goff's 27. Goff's not old. And he played in 2 Pro Bowls. I get it. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, cool. He's only 27, right? But if he plays okay, we dance around 500, sneak in or something like that. Or maybe he's playing really well, but he gets hurt, right? It becomes an unanswered question. Worst case scenario, unanswered question. You have some good feeling about Goff, but is it good enough to give him a 4-year, 5-year extension? Probably not. And again, that's the worst case. That's the one I don't want. And the other one is obvious, right? Goff plays very well, shows us that we do not have a quarterback issue. Then we get to take all that capital I talked about and we get to go spend it on other parts and make the team better. Now, if you're laughing, cool. You can be that dude. I have no problem with it. I'm not, because I can tell you, as I go back to opinion forming, which I talked about earlier, how do you form your opinions? If you're that person who says, I'm going to take the first 10 games of last year and that alone, that's my opinion of Jared Goff, then that's okay. You can do that. If you could ignore the last 6 games, which is the most recent data set you actually have, cool. If you can forget the fact that 4 years ago he was in a Super Bowl on a good team, I say it that way on purpose. He took a good team to the Super Bowl and he went to 2 Pro Bowls because he played on a good team. Because there's a mentality there that says we have data that suggests Jared Goff can take a good team to a Super Bowl. We know that. That's not me eating cornbread or drinking Kool-Aid. That is a fact. We know. And if you want to say, oh, that was 5 years ago, he's only 27. If you're the guy who says, I give Goff no credit, that was all Sean McVay, okay, you can be that guy too. You can be that guy too. And then I'll have to remind you that you are the guy who said Matthew Stafford wasn't any good. And then he went to, say it with me, a good team and promptly won a Super Bowl. My point there is maybe you're putting too much on the quarterback, Goff, just like you did with Stafford. Maybe it's on the organization to put a good team around this quarterback and he will be able to take us much further. But everybody doesn't see that way. I'm just making a case before people think, oh, he just loves Lions quarterbacks. I have never apologized for my unapologetic love for Matthew Stafford, and I never will. I always thought Matthew Stafford was good, and this isn't hindsight. You can go back. This podcast has been around for 3 years. You can go back and see podcasts where I defended Stafford. I hyped him up. I talked about he was a Hall of Famer. Well, but when he was still a Lion. So I'm not saying Goff's a Hall of Famer. I'm not saying Goff's going to take us to a Super Bowl. What I'm saying is I have data from 4 or 5 years ago that with talent around him, Jared Goff can take your team to a Super Bowl. Now, some of that talent's on the coaching sidelines, which goes back to Dan Campbell's got to get better. Hopefully he did. I'm saying to you that I saw evidence in the last 5 or 6 games that Jared Goff got better in Detroit. Better understanding of the system, where to go with the ball, more comfortable with his teammates, whatever it is. I'm telling you, I have data that suggests that when healthy, the Lions have one of the best offensive lines in football, top 6, top 7. I'm suggesting to you that Josh Reynolds will continue to help, that adding DJ Chark, and once Jamison Williams comes in, they will make Jared Goff better. They will give Jared Goff more options. And there are people, and those people call into sports talk radio every afternoon, and they're told by their guru of everything that Jared Goff's a bum. The Lions can't win with Jared Goff, and they're going to drop names and talk about college players. And it's okay, because you can decide that already. The overwhelming point I'm making is I don't know yet who Jared Goff is. I'm not ready to call it and say this is who he is, because there's data. And I'm not ignoring the first 10 games. I will say to you, those first 10 games are on a new team with a new coach in a system that apparently wasn't working because Anthony Lynn's no longer here, with not a lot of talent, specifically wide receiver talent. I can't ignore that. But I know this dude is 27. He's gone to 2 Pro Bowls, no matter how long ago they were. I know that in the last 6 games, he looked like a different quarterback. And you can give me the Green Bay game, didn't matter to Green Bay. That's all great. But I will just use the eyeball test. The data I know from the Rams and the eyeball test of what I saw in the last 6 games. And then I will say, okay, data is data. If you think throwing for 3,200 yards, 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions in 14 games is easy and any old bum can do it, we just don't think the same. And I think if you add talent, the yards go up, the touchdowns go up, and the interceptions go down. His career passer rating, this includes his Ram time when he was really good, obviously, 91.5. Very good passer rating. That's not a bad passer rating. You know what his passer rating was for last year? Yep, 91.5. Exactly the same. Who is he? If you think you have the answer, cool. I don't think I have the answer. I'm not sure I have the answer. I'm prepared to let this year inform my opinion about who Jared Goff is. knowing that we got 2 number ones next year and a healthy cap. So I'm prepared to say, hey, I'm not going to project out what we need. Let's see what happens, right? And there is a world where the Lions could go 6-11 and Jared Goff is the answer at quarterback. Nobody's going to want to hear that because we need somebody to blame. We got to put this on someone. And it'll happen all year. And those dudes will call into the radio show in the afternoon and tell their host, this guy's a bum. And he'll say, yeah, he's a bum. It's cool. I've seen what Jared Goff can do with talent around him. Go back and look at 2018, 2019 Rams. It's there. Footage is there. It's all over YouTube. You can see it. So I have to consistently fall back on the idea that if they put more talent around him, what can Jared Goff be? And I don't think I know yet. And I'm generally not comfortable in situations where I don't know yet. That is not my natural comfort zone. But I have to be honest. I like the addition of Chark. I like what Jameson Williams is going to bring because they didn't have that last year. I like the recent signing of Devin Funchess and how that gives them options on a 2 tight end package with TJ Hawkinson. I love DeAndre Swift and what he brings. The running back room in general is pretty strong. I like this offense. Now that they filled the biggest hole with 2 signings, right? And I would even consider Josh Reynolds helping there. I like the wide receiver room a lot. I think Devin Funchess gives depth at tight end. And the offensive line is strong. When healthy, they have a very good offensive line. So my only point is simply this. If you think you know what Jared Goff is, you're a different kind of cat. I'm not sure yet. But what I will say to you is this is the most critical year in a long time for the Detroit Lions. This will define the next 10 years. If somehow the third scenario works itself out and Jared Goff plays really well and they decide we don't have a quarterback problem, they extend him for, say, 4 years or even 5 because the last couple years won't matter. It's about the guaranteed money. They extend Jared Goff and the quarterback question is answered. Do you know what they can do next year? Coming off probably a solid year this year with Green Bay's quarterback getting a year older. And I don't dislike the Vikings, but they got a lot of new stuff going on. The Lions can be in the driver's seat. And I've consistently said on other podcasts that I do. I refer to them as the 2023 Central. Really? 2023 NFC North champion Detroit Lions. That's what I've targeted all along. For that to happen, selfishly, I need Jared Goff to suck horribly or be very, very good. And because I'm on record and I don't waffle as being a Jared Goff guy, I think the moves they've made, the additions they've added, the talent they've put around him, I'm not sure if we don't already have a quarterback. I said at the draft, no, I don't want to draft Malik Willis. No, I don't want to draft Sam Howell. I think we have a quarterback. I'm not convinced we don't have a quarterback already. But I think DJ Chark and a healthy Jameson Williams and a healthy DeAndre Swift, Devin Funchess, what they've done has made the offense specifically better. I think we will see a better version of Jared Goff, even better than the version we saw the last 6 games, which I really liked. So the Goff question for me is still a question. It's not necessarily a bad question, though, because I think what you need is I don't need that second scenario. If I'm wrong, I'll come on here and say I had it wrong. If he struggles reading coverages or just with this making throws, as long as you stop benchmarking Matthew Stafford as arm talent, you can't, because Jared Goff doesn't have that arm talent, and a lot of dudes don't. And that's not the end of the world, right? That's not a bad thing to say his arm isn't as good as Matthew Stafford's is ridiculous, right? So I think that what I need to know is, what is Jared Goff? Good, bad, or ugly? No, it needs to be good or ugly. It needs to be very good or very ugly to know what is Jared Goff, because then we can decide, and we have the capital, whether it's picks or space, to go get a quarterback and not derail the rebuild. The rebuild is in a great place right now. And if we go into next summer not being sure, then ultimately Brad Holmes is just going to have to make a decision. Jared Goff played okay. He's only 27. We got to go get somebody else, because that somebody else might be a rookie who's going to need a learning curve. That someone else could be an experienced quarterback. And if he says what I'm certain Sean McVay said to Les Snead about a year and 5 months ago, hey, I just read the Lions are open to trading Stafford, That is the missing piece. That's how the Ram thing went down. Sean McVay made a call, or Les Snead called Sean McVay, and they had a conversation, and they said, we don't have anything bad to say about Jared Goff. We're one piece away. We're an elite quarterback away from winning a Super Bowl. Once they agreed on that, the deal to get Stafford became easy. And I don't know that we're a year away from that. I think this year is going to inform a number of decisions next summer, next offseason. The play of this season, and not just the record, but the play of this season is going to go a long way to inform what the Lions do at quarterback. And ultimately, that's what matters. If they can build a great defense, cool. It's only going to get them so far. Unless you're a next level 2000 Ravens, 85 Bears type of deal, it's only going to get you so far. You're going to have the quarterback. And I say very clearly, we might already have them. Something to think about. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Goff. You can agree or disagree. Let me take a peek and see what's going on Twitter. Okay. Ricky J agrees. Ricky J says, hey, I think you have a point. We need to see what he can do with talent. Exactly what I'm saying. Can't be more succinct. Okay. Oh, another good one. I think Goff is going to the Pro Bowl, which I have in moments of probably intoxicated or something. I think Jared Goff might be a Pro Bowler this year. I like what I saw. That's a bold statement, but I'm fine. I'm going to co-sign that. I think Goff's going to make the Pro Bowl. So, no negatives? Come on. Two more. Hang on. Okay. All right. We got one. And I'm not going to call him a dumbass Dan because I don't know him, but he dropped the dumbass Dan line. So he's got to be called a dumbass Dan. You cannot do this. He drops the no quarterback will ever be great with the Lions because you named it, the Fords on the team. Somebody explain to me any degree of logic in that statement. So no quarterback. But by the way, we just spent 12 years with a very good quarterback, but I'm not even going to do that one. Just a gratuitous mention of Matthew Stafford. I won't do it. This guy has decided that no quarterback could ever, no matter who he is or how good he is, if he comes to the Lions, he could never be good because the Ford's on the team. I'm not even going to do it. I probably shouldn't finish on that one. One more. Hang on. There we go. Jameson Williams is the key. He gives Goff a deep threat that will occupy the safety and open up the shorter range routes for, Amon-Ra St. Brown, TJ Hawkinson. And see, that's a smart guy. He understands what Jameson Williams' presence brings. Doesn't mean he's going to catch 15 touchdowns. Simply put, he's going to occupy the safety. And nobody occupied the safety last year. Let's be honest, right? So if the safety's got to worry about Jameson Williams blowing past his corner, that will make Hawkinson better. It will make Amon-Ra St. Brown better, and it will make DeAndre Swift better. And all of those things makes who better? Yes, sir, Jared Goff. So that's my feelings on Goff. You can agree or not agree. Feel free. Hit me up on Twitter. The email is cornbreadandkool-aid-pod@gmail. I don't care. Twitter is easiest. I'm open to thoughts. So I think we'll be back on within a couple of weeks. We're going to do a post-NBA draft. Maybe talk a little bit about the Tigers. I thought about it, but I'm struggling, quite frankly. But we may have to talk about what's going on there. And then we're going to be staring training camp right in the face. We're going to be in July, and it's going to be time to get back to what we do, right? A lot more activity, a lot more podcast drops. So we hope you enjoyed it today. Looking forward to seeing what the Pistons do in the draft. And I'm open to hearing your Jared Goff talk at Cornbread Pod. Feel free. We hope everyone has a great Father's Day. All the dads out there. Remember, I got my corny tagline that I'm just going to start doing now every time. All the stuff that goes on in the world kind of boils down to how we treat each other, guys. Treat everybody like they're wearing your favorite team's t-shirt. Life will get a lot easier. So I'm on the Jared Goff bandwagon. I hope you are too. Hope everybody has a good day. Happy Father's Day again to all the dads. Take care, and we will see you soon.